Namaskar and welcome to this exciting episode of Sattology, debunking mythology. Sattology means science of truth, a study of truth. Opposite of that is mythology, which means science or study of fake, lie, or imagination. Sattology builds your identity, whereas mythology destroys your identity. In Sattology courses, we focus on content based on Ramayana, Mahabharata, and Bhagavad Gita, and also Vedas. You'll see many majority of our shows on those lines, and we do discuss other aspects from that perspective, from that viewpoint. We have a very special guest who is an author who has come on this show many times, and he's a very regular panelist on multiple TV discussions in India and also abroad sometimes because those shows are very popular in the US also. So let us welcome Dr. Ratan Sharda.
Namaskar, Aditi.
Namaskar. So world is changing so fast that we see SEO meeting happening and India becoming the leader of the SEO. I mean, who could have imagined that India will be a leader of Shanghai Cooperation Organization? What is your view on this?
See, so far we had this typical sense of lack of belief in ourselves. Our rulers always thought that we are third class world power, we have no space and we are not growing, we are poor, we have nothing to show to the world. Because our leaders took the cue from the Western world of what India is. But with Modi, slowly people are realizing that what we are. The Indians are realizing what we are. We have much more confident and assertive India on the world stage now, who has done wonderful work for the world whenever required, whether it's peacekeeping force, whether it's fight against COVID, or whether it's fight against natural disaster, etc., or even, for example, the climate change. India has been leading the charge with the more stress on non-conventional energies and also refused to be cowed down by world powers who wanted it to follow certain kind of politics. It said its interest is paramount like any other countries. It will do what it thinks is good for India. So this approach of India and also the newfound confidence and also ability to talk to the world leaders as equals has changed the entire equation. And I think this is the reason why you find India very assertive and very important part of the world leaders. And Modi ji, with his continuous exertions, has he been able to create equations with even opposing nations and also people who are inimical to each other. That's the strength of Modi ji. I think that has been reflected now in all the world affairs.
Even before Modi ji reaches the world, there is another person which is very famous in the world is Dr. S. Jaishankar.
Of course, see, Dr. S. Jaishankar is working on the cue from Mr. Modi. We had a former bureaucrat, Mr. Manmohan Singh, as Prime Minister, but he was beholden to the politicians. He was beholden to the same worldview, Nehruvian worldview. So he never asserted himself except for the American 123 nuclear agreement. But in this case, Mr. Jaishankar has understood Mr. Modi very well. And he is taking the cue from Mr. Modi and the same thinking that Mr. Modi has on the world affairs and where India stands in the World Committee of Nations is being followed by Mr. Jaishankar. And it's a wonderful transformation from a bureaucrat, from a foreign affairs specialist to a politician minister. And he is doing very well, I think, and he has been able to assert India's point of view without ruffling feathers. At the same time, he's very assertive and comfortable with what he's saying.
A few weeks back, President of UAE personally came out to greet Dr. S. Jaishankar. Like he was greeted as powerfully as a prime minister would be. And that was a shocking scene for the whole world that a foreign minister is being greeted by the president of UAE, and UAE is a friendly country to India. Now, this and also the Dr. S. Jaishankar is very clearly, what do you call it, very much followed by the American media also. And in the sense that he gets the best platform, C-SPAN, and no other foreign minister ever got it. And this really shows the coming of age of respect for India when it is standing on its own feet in the Western world. It helps other communities also because there are many countries dependent on India for their viewpoint of this world. Yeah.
See, in fact, I would say that Mr. Jaishankar and Modi ji are representing a new non-alignment view as compared to the earlier weak non-alignment which was tilted to one or the other. But this group of non-aligned nations who didn't want to be group with the NATO or the Russians or Chinese circle. These people are out of it, and now they find in India a very good ally, and they have been following India's line, even if it's in UNO. The number of countries who take India's line is increasing tremendously because they realize that this is the country which is actually non-aligned. At the same time, very assertive in its own interest, as well as supporting world wherever required. See this quality of India to even at the cost of its own budget, its own resources to support world whenever required in the crisis. Especially if you look at the COVID scenario, that's tremendous. That is the reason why there is newfound respect, and that is why the poor countries who were supported all through during COVID and various disasters have recognized this, and this has seen the change. And this is why now this group of nations who don't want to align with either the left or the right are finding the right platform, and both sides of the world are now understanding its truly objective view of their own self-interest. They're respecting them. That is the biggest change.
See, one of the things is like in the US now, increasingly, noticing a lot of media discussions now. China and India figure prominently, and out of which China is with fear, and India is also now with fear. See, the thing is, when we talk about the Western world, unless they say that they're getting scared, that means something is getting shaken up. Something is getting shaken up because the West world viewpoint is just European and American and all the other colonies like Australia and New Zealand. These are all colonies. Canada is a colony. Now, in the Western world, now we see a new divisions coming up in European Union, and
Yeah.
and many of those countries are beginning to move away from the American viewpoint on war, on peace, on even on foreign policy, because what they've seen what happened to Ukraine and the US wishy-washy dilly-dallying
I think
on Taiwan.
you said war and peace, but where is the Western world providing peace? Tell me. They are mongering for wars, and that is the reason world is scared. The European Union, which had which decent life with decent living standards, have been suddenly pushed into a situation where it has to choose between Russia and US, with US being acting like a big brother. So if you look at that scenario, it is for these people who want peace that they have been stuck with an alliance where they don't know where to go. So I would rather put it that it is not US which is fearing India, because it is looking at it much more consciously, I would say, realizing that India will take its own independent position and what it can be will be decided by it only at the right time. It is the European world and the so-called allies of the US who today are in a quandary. What to do, where to go, how to face Russia, how to face energy crisis, how to face inflation due to lack of the agriculture product as well as the fuel. So this is the scenario which has been created by very, I would say, ill-calculated moves by the leader of the Western world, that is US, and which has put entire Europe in a very difficult situation. Forget about the poor countries who are bearing the brunt of it. But even US and UK are Europe and UK are facing a heavy brunt of what has been happening in Ukraine. And unless these people realize that this must end one day, and rather than trying to see the victors and the people who are vanquished, I think they need to rethink whether it's the right move to put the world in such a horrible situation as sort of coming out of COVID. It was only because India refused to be dragged into the war. It has been able to survive and thrive as an economy when worldwide the world is facing horrible inflation, unemployment, unrest. India is an island of a decent, stable economy which is growing, and that has happened because India refused to be dragged into this unnecessary struggle between two powers. I think that is what the lesson is, and other countries earlier they understand it and put their foot down that this must end. We will see some more misery in the world.
See, the all over the world now, the globalism is suddenly off. Everyone is trying to protect themselves now. Like the US is focusing on their economy. Europe is gradually going to move away from the wars and focus on their economy because Germany is getting affected very badly.
But
But
Aditya, Europe, how is it moving away from war? Many countries of Europe are not part of NATO. They are being forced to become a member of NATO for whatever insecurity they face. So in fact, they are being dragged into the alliances which promote war.
No,
It is
no,
not the other way around.
no,
Whether
but
they will pull out of NATO, I doubt, but whether they will pull out of this entire struggle and say this is enough, I do not know yet, because there are no signs of any repentance, no signs of any rethink of what is going on around their borders. I think this is a dangerous scenario. So it is not Europe which is trying to get into peace, because they are getting dragged into the NATO, which is a military arrangement.
no, you're right. See, the thing is, NATO is on paper. Today, if you look at all the media reports coming out of Hungary, Germany, Poland, all these countries, Poland chose South Korean jets. South Korean jets they chose. The Hungary chose to remain neutral, and they are passing a resolution in their parliament to move away from NATO because they don't want to get dragged to NATO. So before the war, what was the alliance, and now what is the alliance is totally different. And now more and more countries are like Russia yesterday gave a olive line, and it said that if you want to remove food shortage, I have a solution for you. So they want to do that, but the thing is they are just getting stopped because they signed on that paper NATO, and so they cannot. So they have to either give up NATO or give up EU membership. Once you give up the EU membership, then you can get NATO in free. But the real danger then becomes is, will they come under the Chinese debt trap after that? That's a question after that. So and with the Chinese, Sri Lanka has seen, and Sri Lanka has done both sides right now. India and China, they played very well. India is the one who came to the rescue now.
They
So
thought they fought very well, but actually they got trapped. I was talking to Lankan High Commissioner at one time, and we told him that, why are you getting trapped in this Chinese debt trap, and why you're giving all the favors to Chinese contractors, Chinese industries. He said, no, no, we are very clever. We clearly know which side is better, and we have equal respect for India and love for India. But they are giving us better terms what to do. We know they are manipulating. We know they are giving, lower interest rate, and they are giving subsidy to the industrialists to put their plants here. But what can we do? If we are getting better terms, we'll go for it. But don't worry, we are very good. Our economy is very stable, and we will be able to withstand both the sides, and we'll be able to do very well. And within 6 months, we see what happened. I was talking just about it, I think 7 to 8 months back, when this was everything seemed to be hunky dory as far as Sri Lanka was concerned. So this miscalculation about taking India for granted and also trying to believe that China will be very nice, creditor to them, is a miscalculation they made. And of course, they were also fooled into going for complete green Lanka without any preparations. So this green farming without any preparation, on the one side, then there is COVID, then there is China. Multiple factors were there. It was only India that stood by them, and that is how they could at least survive. The sooner they learn their lessons, better it is for everybody.
if you look at countries like Iran, who have opposed India on religious grounds and favored India on business grounds, and today they are openly begging for India to buy oil, Iranian oil, because they know India can avoid American sanctions. So the fear of American sanctions is what keeps people doing the free trade in the world. So ideally, the previous model was, and I, since I live here in the US and I know what the American foreign policy, I just follow the media, not the, I have no connections anywhere. But so when you follow the media, then it's like when they say the worldview, it's the American leadership. So it's the worldview prevalent in the academic circles. It is the American military that maintains American worldview. If it is not for American military, then it is not American worldview.
True.
So this is a very clear. It says, and they say that one who has a strength, like in Hindi you say, "Jiski lathi uski bhais."
True.
The same mindset they have, and which is also mentioned in Bhagavad Gita 16th chapter. So the point is, can India be calling world, because Prime Minister Modi said very beautifully, this is not an era for war, and he said it correctly because of so many pandemic diseases and economic hardships people are facing, and the wars actually add to the taxes of people, and ultimately people have to pay for it. Politicians make a decision and people have to pay for it. So he's very accurate in that it's not an era for war. But the thing is, that statement had it message for every single country of the world who are part of the war in Ukraine. So now my question to you is, can India assume any leadership position with the state of its military today? Because there is no way India can intervene all over the world the way US can.
So see, India has been providing using its military where required for peacekeeping purposes. It is not using its military for any expansionism or imperialism or trying to force its view down the throat of the world. It will not be. It will not do that also. Right now, India has the moral force of being supportive to all the countries wherever required and supportive to the poor economies wherever required to the best of its power and its strength. And that is the and its own soft power of providing people the right kind of philosophy of world brotherhood and also for the climate change, etc. This leadership role as a knowledge power, as a soft power, and a country which is a nation which stands for every country which is in trouble or which requires any help. That is what India get. We will give India the leadership position, not the military power. Even today, military-wise, India is not in a position to be independent military power. It depends on Russia, it depends on US, and slowly indigenizing, which is fine. But I think India was never, in all its entire life, its entire civilization period of more than 10,000 years, ever trying to conquer the world with military power. And that psyche has not changed at all. It is only like earlier days when India had strength. Even now, when India has enough strength, it is going to trying to help world in whatever way possible, whether it's a disease or a disaster or climate. Everywhere it is there to help others and also follow the rules of the game, so we don't fall into a huge climate crisis. And I think in that also India has a major voice. And this particular approach of India is what will give it a very strong moral support, which the earlier time was not there because we could not put our money where our mouth was. So we were doing all kind of preaching, but we didn't have the enough strength or enough confidence to put it in practice. Now we are putting it in practice, and that is where India will score as a country which you can depend on without being gobbled up like China gobbles up countries. So that people very well know that India will not gobble up any territory or people. It will stand firm. It will stand firm with people who require support and go by the world order to make it strengthen the world order. And once they realize this, that is where strength of India is, not the military strength. Yes, it is not strong enough to withstand any attack, and despite all the claims about China about gobbling up the lands, it is happening over a period of time. But slowly, China finds it is becoming more and more difficult to try to browbeat India. That is the important lesson. And when that happens, if US and Australia like what they realize that India is a dependable ally, that will change the equations.
No, as an American, I can clearly say Tibet is Indian because Tibet belongs to India. And Pakistan is a failed country, and which is, I'm really questioning the American State Department why they're funding it. But the thing is that countries like Pakistan, Tibet, these countries have never existed alone in the history. They were part of India. That's why they were prosperous, because the trade routes will go to Gujarat or they go to Hastinapur and these kind of places. But historically they have been a dependent land. Afghanistan has always depended on trade from India, because the trade routes will go through Afghanistan, and that's where a lot of Hindu traders used to make deals in Kabul. And just around, you can say, 636, 700 AD, and up till 1900s, 1919 is where officially it became independent by the British, cut out by the British. So now all these territories are there which are very inimical to India on the religious grounds, on the Islamic grounds. And the foreign policy of India has consistently been very evasive about these issues by saying that it is an Indian problem. It has nothing to do with the world. That is true. The world accepts it also. But do you think that India can ensure a long-term non-interventionist policy, military non-interventionist policy, to continue with these kind of lands? Because these lands are lawless in nature, and you cannot maintain a long-term prosperity of India unless these lands are controlled militarily. What is your view on that?
Well, frankly speaking, I don't think that is an option right now, nor will India look at it. As far as Pakistan is concerned, Pakistan has its own intervention within its own country. It is Balochistan, it has got Pashtuns, it has got Sindhis, it has got POJK population. None of it is in great love for Pakistan or Pakistani politicians or the government. And we see the continuous disturbances in these provinces, and that internal schism, that internal uh, break between the Pakistani population due to domineering position of the Punjabi politicians and the top families, the aristocratic families or the feudal families of Pakistan, that is going to slowly break apart Pakistan. So Indian intervention will not be required. India can only use it like fish in the troubled water. And I think India should be doing and it would be doing. And that is when that collapses, then Afghanistan would, of course, come in direct contact with India. And I think understanding that they are impoverished, they are a collapsing nation, they will have no other way but to give up their ideas of Islamic, ISI and Islamic Khilafat, etc. And then you will see the change. And that is when the force of India will be understood. But getting bogged down like Russia earlier, than USA in Afghanistan, reaching nowhere, despite being able to run for 10 years or 20 years a good democratic institutions in Afghanistan, it took no time to collapse because the society may not be ready yet, or maybe the Taliban is much more stronger than we believe, or people who believed in democracy were only trying to use the American resources to live a comfortable life. So India will not like to get involved in that and get swamped in that particular area. But first, China, it is Pakistan which will require to wind up its terror factories and try. Now, maybe there is a small aid from Pakistan, from USA, but that is not going to save Pakistan. It might stay afloat for some more time. But what about continuous internal sabotages, continuous internal wars? Now you must have read the news where Chinese have left one of the major dams in POJK area because of lack of security and also maybe payment. And now what happens? So if this is the way even China will abandon them, then who is there to support their lifelines? And who is there to support them financially? Maybe some aid from one or two countries, but that will not help them survive. So unless they come out of this mad religious bigotry and mad animosity to India, they have no future.
If India gives $100 million, they will sell POJK to India today. So it's that's the condition of Pakistan today. But at the same time, if you look at
My worry is not just that. My worry is that the Western democracies refuse to see how Hindu society is being demonized, how Hindu society is being persecuted. Not in UK. Now there is being a lot of noise being made about Hindus in USA, and this continuous persecution of creating of Hindu misa and Hindu phobia has turned them into easy targets. In UK, for example, if there was fight back from the government and from the people to this narrative of Hindu media, Hindu phobia, you would not seen the kind of riots that happened without any response from the proper response from UK government or from worldwide, where Hindus are being persecuted in UK, in Bangladesh, in Afghanistan. Nobody speaks. So we may be very good, may be very respected, but as far as Hindus are concerned, they have to worry about themselves because no government, no human rights organization talks about them, thinks about them. Now, having created all kind of riotous situations in UK, now Muslims are creating narrative that actually they are being attacked, and that is being taken up by the Western media. So this is an area which is of deep concern because India cannot prosper and be strong if their citizens or its erstwhile citizens rooted in India are treated so shabbily and there is no voice for them. And for example, the commissioner of UK spoke up about these riots 2 weeks after it happened, nearly 14, 15 days. That's pitiable. So unless India is able to take care of its own citizens who are being persecuted in the name of Islamophobia, actually which is Hindu misia and Hindu phobia, by academics, by politicians continuously abusing and ridiculing and criticizing Hindus for what they don't do, and they're blamed for it, and then try to create a counter victimhood narrative, from that we cannot respond, then I think it's a very difficult situation.
see, we cannot avoid the core issues actually. Abrahamism versus dharmic. You know, the that
In UK, for example, this is not Hindu versus Muslims. It is Islamists versus all other religions. Jews are being attacked, who have been attacked in US, UK, in Europe also. They are being attacked in UK. Jews are being attacked. White women are being picked up, white women are being kidnapped, and this is not something new. Why UK politicians, academics can't see this? The sexual grooming story is about 20 years old. And what happened after that? The journalist who stood up for that, picked up the story, who tried to interview the criminals, he was rusticated from the media company itself. If this is the scenario, if this is how you're going to respond to aggressive Islamism, then I'm afraid that this talk of human rights, equality before religion, etc., holds no water. And then India will have to support their people and counter this propaganda in a very assertive way. And that is where the solution is.
See, the core issue, like on the ground, is a very blatant anti-Hindu textbooks in UK and as well as US. That's a core issue because a child is brought up by saying that the pagans are Hindus, infidels are Hindus, or kafirs are Hindus. This is the way the child is brought up. So the child, when he grows up, he carries that viewpoint permanently etched in its memory. And that's the problem. And that only the Indian government or Indian education ministry can challenge, that don't misrepresent Sanatan Dharma in the West. They do that
No,
all the time.
locally in US, the struggle has been going on. In UK, they have been able to change the way books are written. But it is at the level of society where such poison is being spread, and the governments, the local governments, and local politicians are nowhere to be seen. And Hindus, despite being most powerful, most disciplined, and most supported to the local societies, are facing the brunt. And when they face the brunt, nobody is there out to protect them in those countries. What is the role of Muslims in USA and what is the role of Hindus in US? Everybody knows. The most prosperous community, the most law-abiding community, most disciplined community, more devoted to upliftment of the local US economy, those people are being demonized. And people who support intolerance, who support mindset which says Allahu Akbar, which is only Allah is the supreme, nobody else, those are taken as secular people. If we can't see through this game, then this kind of Hinduphobia will ultimately lead to the situation which are seeing in UK today.
See, in the US, there have been a lot of attacks against Hindus by radical evangelical Christians as well. Temples have been
Yeah.
vandalized in Houston and other places. And also there are radical Indian origin organizations like IAMC. They have participated in that and created a false narrative, like in terms of caste. I mean, I have grew up in Bombay, and I have not seen anything against any, like we never felt anything against or us or anyone else. We didn't never do against anyone else. But the thing is, the propaganda is a propaganda, and this propaganda is funded partly by the American state agencies and also British state agencies and also Pakistan. Even though Pakistan is a pauper country, but they managed to take out some funds to do it. We have not
Even
seen,
even in case of Khalistan, it is funding of Pakistan which is keeping them alive.
but we have not seen Indian agencies coming out and doing any counter to that. Because see, as a citizen, we cannot do much, because as a citizen we cannot we have to just go to the police and ask them for protection. That's what we can do maximum. And whether police protects us or not, so there is a lack of bigger involvement by the other agencies which are more powerful, like probably maybe the Indian Foreign Office can work with the community and take out. And I see that they have done it in 2 days back. They have taken out a very stronger worded action against, in the UK they have taken out.
I pointed out it took them 2 weeks to make a statement, and Hindu society was reaching out to them. They were sending them cables, they were calling them up on the phones, and the commissioner took 2 weeks to respond. In that scenario, where does the Hindu go? Police won't respond. Police will give a statement saying that the rumors are wrong, no mosque was attacked, no women were kidnapped, no women were molested. They will make statement, but they will stand quietly when Hindu temple is attacked, when their flags are torn down and burned, and they will keep quiet. And Indian commissioner will take 2 weeks to respond. It is
Exactly.
shocking. Though I am a big supporter of this government, I find there's still this typical bureaucratic approach where they still believe they are sahibs and not serving the local community and not trying to have coordination with the local community and the government. They just believe that they are sitting in an ivory tower. This used
In
to happen earlier on. This changed a lot under this government, but you still find such people are not really worried
No,
what is happening.
they are all Nehruvian bureaucrats. Like they have the same mindset, leftist mindset they have. They are
But
not see.
despite that, Modi ji was able to retrain them. Modi was able to make them understand why it is important to give protection and give the rightful legal support to the PIOs and NRIs. Despite this, in such a critical situation, they fail. I think they need to be pulled up.
I'll give one example. OCI card today for any Indian new citizens who are becoming American citizens who are becoming, it takes 7 weeks. 7 today.
Well, you can't actually, blame, because US visa takes in India today 600 days, my dear friend. So, so
So,
at least on that count, you can't blame Indians,
no,
because
but
US is much more like sick. Can you imagine 2 years for a visa? Luckily, my visa is still on, so I can at least make a trip or 2 years before I fall into that 600 days category. In UK, in Europe, people have missed flights, they have missed their holidays, they have missed everything because the visa didn't come.
but the
So on
American
that count,
southern
India is much better.
on on a lighter side, American southern borders are open, so anyone can people can walk in. Nowadays, 2 million people are walking in every year. So if you can
So
make it,
always the illegal immigrants are always happy. That is why Pakistan is strong by UK, because they'll get absorbed. And there were Indians at one time who used to use illegal means. Now, except Khalistani people don't use illegal means, and that is what is true for southern part of USA or even UK.
in fact, our volunteers at Sattology, some of them who live near the borders, they have set up huge kitchens to serve
Okay.
Indian meals to the Indian immigrants coming from southern border. There are
Oh,
approximately 120,000 Indian immigrants came from southern border. 120,000. And
I
they
think travel
demand
agents of India are very, very alive to what's happening in USA more than what is happening in India.
they they, they are no we get asked, we want chapati, we want dal, we want sabji. So we have the menu laid out for them, for the who are coming from the southern borders. But and also the other communities also, they love Indian food, so that's a positive thing actually happening now. One last question from this series is that, see, we you did speak very openly about the how the Indian commissions and other have to react proactively. I would like to go one step further, that just like America raises human rights issues whenever Christians are affected in India, especially Christians and Muslims, but India has not done anything so far. I mean, it has not made a hue and cry. It has not gone to the United Nations. It has not gone to something where it affects the trade. And like India putting a sanction that we are not going to buy unless you improve human rights situations against Indian Americans or American Hindus, because there are a lot of Hindus who willingly practice Hinduism in the American community. You can call it a white community or a black community or people from Barbados, Europe, who are settled in the US, and they practice Hinduism very, very strongly in the US. And in fact, some of them are big gurus also in US. So we have not come out in support of them, and we have not taken out any statement. So Hindus is the only group which is purely Prakriti pe dependent hai, or Bhagwan pe dependent hai. So this is a good thing that we are dependent on Bhagwan. But something has to be done from Kartavya. When you talk about Kartavya, then Kartavya Path, this is the Kartavya Path, that they have to act out of emergency, not against Hindus all the time.
I think that thinking about, lecturing the best on their own human rights records has begun. I think that you talked about Dr. Jaishankar Prasad, he talked about it very openly. And I think even institutionalizing this kind of study of whether it's economic parameters or human rights parameters or human development index parameters, these are all being thought about in India. And I think these will slowly take shape, and we'll be able to respond to the coin that is thrown at us.
See, I have one more question coming up in the audience. These are coming from the audience now. So, how does India view this? Is American, the student is asking the question. Will India ever become China? That's a question.
In what way?
In terms of like the economic
Power in terms of dictatorship.
in terms of all aspects. Like that's the biggest thing on the mind of Americans, most of them. I'm qualifying your question actually, so just because so I have to put it more so that he can answer more vividly this answer. So like from the what America has seen, what this is the viewpoint of general Americans. I don't feel that way, by the way, but I'm going to paraphrase your question. So that Americans feel that they are the ones who built up China. Most of the Americans think that it is their money which has made China stronger. If America does the same to India, then will India be challenging US everywhere militarily as well as politically? That's am I right?
See, there is a huge difference between current Indian civilizational worldview and the China's worldview, which used to be similar to India. But since the ascent of Chinese Communist Party and especially Z, they have gone back to some kind of a medieval Chinese mindset where they want to dominate the world, they want to dominate every aspect of the world and also become superpower militarily. That is one thing. Secondly, this particular society is a closed society, and they have accepted their fate as a closed society so far, I believe. And they are just looking at the economic benefits, and they're happily enjoying a better life, which was available to them now after 30 years of tough times of converting from communist China to communist capitalism. While in India, democracy has been rooted in India since 4 BC at least on record. Right from Chandragupta Maurya's time, we had Janapadas, we had what we call district level committees to explain to the American audience, and we had ground level democracy like panchayat, that is five people committee in every village, unanimously elected to take care of village issues, and that is how the economy also worked at the level of villages. And so this is one difference, that India cannot become a totalitarian state. India will take a little slower time to progress because we allow every kind of dissent. We listen to people. Projects are sometimes given up because of agitations, and incidentally, two major projects were dropped because of Christian missionary supported NGOs, which stopped the copper refinery in Tamil Nadu. They tried to stop a port also in Tamil Nadu. They were able in Maharashtra. They were able to push a very big project from Maharashtra to Gujarat. But this is the specialty. Your bullet train slowed down because there were protests by the people. So taking people along and then growing with it is a weakness as well as strength of India. Because people get involved, people believe that they have a right, they have a voice, whether poor or rich. So that makes India very different from China. As I said, our mindset also from millennium ago, 10,000 years back to today, has been to share the wealth, work with the people. Right from beginning, India was dominating the trade scenario in the world till 1850 or 1857, and lost out only when the British killed the Indian industry. That being so, is slowly emerging from that dark age, and we are becoming strong again, at least in many sectors where they nearly dominate the world, and that will make India strong. So India has no inherent love or hate for USA. Basically, Indians love USA because of democratic norms. They love USA because of the culture they've enjoyed with them. People have gone there and they've enjoyed life there, and also because of one society. But at the same time, when USA tries to put India in trouble or tries to put doesn't support India in whereas rightly it should, then Indians feel bad. But basically, there is a warm relationship between the two societies. So there is no reason why India should clash with USA. It is for USA to understand it's one of the best friends in its zone, where it is actually facing competition from China, facing grave threat from China, India Pacific area, and that is where India can be of help to USA. If USA were to be vocal enough, where India is being attacked by China in various fronts, and also understand the importance of India as the biggest democracy, functioning democracy, emerging power, strong intellectual wealth. If they understand all this, and the big state of USA, not just the presidents, actually understand this and work on it, we can always be friends. USA, you see, USA had to go to China because India didn't offer the right platform manufacturing. There are too many laws. Even today, when people are moving out of China, India has not been able to gather the best possible investment opportunities because they went to Vietnam and Thailand, etc. And so if that had happened, we would have seen huge investment from ancestors who are moving out of China. that is happening, but not the way it should have happened, because we have still not got around the red tapeism and bureaucracy. But for USA, India remains the best bet if it wants to uh, dominate the world in a positive manner. If it doesn't understand it and goes for short-term goals and short-term, interest of putting Russia against Ukraine, etc., or using China at the same time, trying to control India's growth, then you have a kind of dichotomy where India will survive, USA will live, but they must realize US is a declining power today. That is evident to everybody. So if it wants to survive as a powerful country, it needs allies and genuine allies.
See, every single major country of the world manages their own, they have their own social media platform to create their conversations. India is the only country which doesn't have. India uses American social media platforms to engage in even a national conversation. So, so that then is it? Will it be like a hybrid Indo-US or West-US, West Indian kind of thing?
The Aditya will change. For example, the wonderful software for COVID vaccination, which never failed anybody. Wonderful software for UPI, that is the digital payment, which is best possible world record you can talk of. Okay, can you imagine uh, 20 million, no, sorry, 200 million users of COVID platform and never faltered? Do you realize the importance of UPI, which has got biggest ever digital payment platform, conducting the maximum number of load on their digital payments? And this is the strength. And slowly those entrepreneurs who used to do only the labor job for American companies are so confident they are making their own technologies. So it is not long before we are also able to create a platform which will be US independent, because that is the best way to save its security and its sovereignty. But it might take a little time, but it will happen because the move has started. It's a very confident India which can create its own software platforms, its own vaccines, etc. You see the condition of vaccines created by USA vis-a-vis vaccines created by India. You see the quality, you see the difference, you see the effectiveness. That is the lesson. So the urge to only make money by working for the US companies no more there. Young people are aspiring. As I said, the best example is UPI and COVID vaccine platform, and many other, in fact. So many digital platforms we have today, so many unified digital platforms, which people don't even realize. It is question of just operating system and the data management, which is still now data management going out of coming back to India, and that is the future. And only in terms of operating systems, maybe sooner or later that will also happen. But that should not impact the relationship with the USA. It is for US companies to stop interfering, stop manipulating Indian minds with their AI, with their various platforms, and that is there for their own good.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ratan Sharda ji, for connecting so many dots together. And and check out Dr. Ratan Sharda on the Google, and you can check him out. He has a Google page as well, and also on Amazon. Many books are written by him. You can check out his viewpoint in the books, because an author writes much more in the books than he speaks. Only 1% comes on the channel. Okay, so YouTube is not the best way to learn something from the author, and that is for all the authors. If you want to see what they actually mean, you have to check out on the books, because in the books they can write in detail. So thank you for coming on the show, and do check it out.
Always a,
RATANSHARDA. Yes, yes, go ahead.
always a pleasure, Aditya ji. It's an enjoyable conversation. Thank you so much.
Namaste. Namaste.